When Karen from the HOA decided she owned the whole neighborhood, I kept my head down and stayed out of it. I'd bought my 5-acre property precisely because I wanted space, privacy, and peace. But Karen had a habit of expanding her authority like it was a balloon she could keep blowing air into forever. Rules for everyone else, exceptions for her, classic HOA royalty behavior. Still, even with her constant emails about community standards, I didn't expect her to cross the one boundary I thought was obvious. My land. It started with a text from my neighbor, Mark. "Bro, why are there like 200 cars pulling into your back field?" I was in town grabbing feed for my chickens and supplies for my beehives. At first, I thought he was joking. Then he sent a photo. Cars, tents, coolers, people setting up like it was a summer music festival. On my field, I drove home faster than any responsible adult with a truck full of livestock feed should. When I pulled up to the property line, I saw it, a giant banner stretched between two stakes. HOA Summer Celebration, hosted by Karen. I parked, got out, and marched right toward the chaos. Music was blasting. Kids were running around. A food truck, yes, a food truck, was setting up on my grass, its tires sinking into my soft soil. Karen spotted me as if I were an annoying interruption to her scheduled festivities. "Oh good, you're here," she chirped loudly. "We needed to use this open space. The HOA board voted that this land counts as communal for today." I stared at her. "Karen, this is private property." She waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. Yes, but since you're part of the HOA." "I'm not." She froze. "What do you mean you're not?" "I opted out when I bought the place. My land isn't part of the HOA. Her eye twitched, and for a second I could see the facade crack. "Well, regardless, the event is already happening. It would be incredibly disruptive to ask people to leave now. You invited them. It's a community event," she insisted. "You should be proud to contribute." That was the moment I realized she fully believed she had the right to take my land for a party because it was convenient for her. I didn't want a confrontation, not yet. Not with 500 people milling around. But I did have something she wasn't expecting. Bees. 10 hives, strong and healthy, sitting at the far end of my property where they would normally be left alone. I wasn't planning on doing hive work that day, but circumstances change. I turned around. "Fine," I said. "Enjoy your party." She beamed smugly, already turning back to her guests. I went to my workshop, grabbed my beekeeping suit, smoker, and equipment. Then I walked toward my hives, far from the crowd. Now, anyone who knows bees knows they're gentle and less provoked. Mine were peaceful, well-managed, and thriving. But they also didn't appreciate sudden vibrations, loud bass, unfamiliar scents, or a few hundred people stomping around their flight paths. And the party had all of that. As I stood beside the hives, I could see how agitated they were. The booming music, the shouting, the movement, bees notice everything. What they needed was space and calm, which they weren't going to get as long as Karen's festival was happening. So I decided to help my bees relocate temporarily. Naturally, that involved opening the hives. Completely. I started by smoking them lightly, just enough so they came to the entrance, confused but not aggressive. A cloud of golden bodies drifted out, humming louder than the music thumping across the field. Then I carefully removed 2 top covers and set them aside. Bees poured out in a buzzing cloud, moving in a wide arc, rising into the air. A few curious scouts drifted toward the noise. Now, here's an important detail. Bees don't automatically attack people. They're more like tiny aerial security guards, alert, investigating, deciding whether something is a threat. And a chaotic swarm of strangers, barbecue smoke, sugary drinks, and kids swinging glow sticks. That's confusing enough to put them on high alert. I stepped back and let nature run its course. It took only a few minutes. The first screams came from the bounce house area. Someone yelled, "Bees," and the panic spread like gasoline on fire. People dropped their drinks. Chairs toppled. The food truck guy dove inside and slammed the window shut. A dad ran in zigzags across the field like he was being chased by a bear while a couple of bees lazily followed him, probably wondering what his problem was. Karen came running toward me, hysterical. "What did you do?" she shrieked. "I'm doing my hive maintenance," I replied calmly. "This is my property, remember. You need to get rid of them. Tell them to go away. They're bees, Karen. I can't just ask them." She stomped her foot. "This is dangerous. People could get stung. So you're saying holding an unauthorized party on a beekeeper's private land wasn't a good idea?" Her mouth opened and closed like a goldfish drowning in air. By then, the field was nearly empty. Cars sped out. People left tents, chairs, and coolers behind, abandoning anything that wasn't essential to survival. The entire 500-person event had cleared out in under 10 minutes, which had to be some kind of record. The moment the crowd dispersed and the noise faded, the bees calmed down. They were no longer agitated. Most of them drifted back toward the hives, settling as if nothing had happened. Karen stood in the middle of the chaos, trash everywhere, decorations half blown across the field, tables flipped over, looking like her entire kingdom had collapsed. "You'll be hearing from the HOA board," she snapped. "I'm not in the HOA," I reminded her again. Well, we'll see about that." She stormed off, swatting at imaginary bees. It took her exactly 2 days to send a letter demanding I pay damages to the HOA for disrupting a sanctioned event. I sent one back politely explaining that trespassing on private property was illegal, and if she wanted, I could forward the matter to the sheriff. The HOA dropped it immediately. Karen hasn't stepped foot on my land since. And my bees, they're doing great. They even got extra treats that week, sugar syrup with a touch of mint. Couldn't have asked for better coworkers. Turns out, nothing enforces property lines quite like 50,000 tiny buzzing attorneys. After the great bee evacuation of Karen's HOA festival, things around the neighborhood changed in ways I didn't expect. The story spread. Someone had filmed the frantic stampede toward the parking lot, and within days, the clip was circulating around local Facebook groups. The comments section was a masterpiece. "Don't mess with the beekeeper. Nature's HOA rejected the application. Bees. 1, Karen. 0. Karen, meanwhile, avoided eye contact with me like I was a walking sting operation. She drove past my property with her windows rolled up, chin pointed so high she practically stared at the clouds. Honestly, I thought things were done. Finished. Lesson learned. But Karen doesn't believe in quiet endings. One Sunday morning, I woke up to a polite knock on my door. Polite knocks in rural areas are never good news. I opened it to find Karen standing on my porch with a clipboard, 3 pages of printouts, and an expression that could curdle dairy. "We need to talk," she said. "I prefer not to," I replied. She barged past me anyway, marching into my living room. "I've prepared a proposal," she announced, flipping through her papers like she was presenting to a courtroom. "The HOA board has agreed that in order to prevent future misunderstandings, you should designate a portion of your land as a community use area." I blinked. "After all that, you still want access to my property?" "It's for the sake of harmony," she said sweetly, though her smile looked like she'd stapled it to her face. "The board believes that if you let us use your field for occasional events, we can avoid conflicts in the future." "And what do I get out of this?" She hesitated. "A sense of unity." I laughed so hard I had to sit down. "Karen, the last time your unity brought 500 people to my front yard, half of them ran screaming. That was because of your aggressive bees." She snapped. "My bees were minding their business. You weren't." She crossed her arms. "If you don't cooperate, I'll have no choice but to escalate this." I raised an eyebrow. "Escalate it to whom?" "The HOA. I'm still not in it." Her mouth tightened. "The county." That part made me pause, not because I was intimidated, but because I wanted to see just how tangled her logic could get. "Karen," I said slowly, "if you call the county, the first thing they'll ask is why your HOA held an unauthorized event on private property. And if you push harder, I'll give them the security camera footage. Including the part where you claimed my land was communal." Her face turned the color of overripe tomatoes. "You wouldn't," she whispered. "I absolutely would." For a moment, she stood there, deflated. I could see the gears grinding in her head, struggling between humiliation and the realization that she couldn't bully the situation her way. Finally, she swallowed hard. "Fine, but this isn't over." She stomped out, slamming the door with enough force to rattle the window. "But here's the thing. I thought it wasn't over either. I expected retaliation, anonymous complaints, petty harassment, maybe even someone spraying pesticide near my hives. Instead, nothing happened. Not a peep, not even a forwarded HOA email. In fact, other neighbors started approaching me privately. One older woman brought me fresh bread and quietly admitted, "We've been waiting years for someone to stand up to her." Another neighbor asked if I'd teach his kids about beekeeping. Mark, the guy who first texted me about the cars, even offered to help build a proper fence. Turns out, Karen's reign had been wobbling for a while. The bee incident didn't just embarrass her, it shattered the illusion of control she'd built. People weren't scared of her anymore. They were tired. Over the next few months, the HOA quietly held its elections. Karen ran for president again. She lost, by a landslide. When she came by to remove the old HOA president plaque from her mailbox, she did it while avoiding eye contact with everyone, including me. I didn't rub it in. Bees teach you patience. One afternoon in early fall, I checked my hives and noticed something unusual. One of the frames had a tiny note taped to it. I plucked it off, confused. It read, "Thank you, a grateful neighbor." No signature, no hint, just quiet appreciation. I smiled. The story could have ended with revenge or drama, but it ended with something better, peace. The neighborhood was calmer, people were friendlier, and my bees remained the tiny buzzing heroes no one expected but everyone respected. As for Karen, she still lives there, but she never stepped foot near my land again. The closest she gets is driving past slowly, glaring as if the bees might be watching her. And honestly, they probably are. Bees remember the scent of trouble. So do I. But sometimes, the best endings are the ones where nature, not yelling, Set the boundaries straight.